Hey guys, so it's me, Kiani. Today's video, I am back with a very different video. This is going to be kind of a where I've been, what I've been up to, what has really happened in my life as of late. I have brought you guys videos in depth like this in the past, but it's just part of life. I feel like I don't have a problem sharing things that are happening in my life basically in real time, but some things are a little bit more serious than others, and this is one of those situations. So I felt like I wanted to move through this situation before I brought you guys kind of a where I am now type video, because one, I wanted to make sure that I made it through it. Two, I wanted to give out as much information as possible from my perspective as possible. So here we are. So if you're interested in where I've been, obviously you've read the title, what has been going on with me as of late, stay tuned. Let's go ahead and get right into it. I recently had a full hysterectomy, and it still sounds very unreal to say. However, I'm grateful to say that last week this time I was literally arriving at the hospital about to go literally under the knife. So if you know anyone that has had a hysterectomy, or you are yourself going to have some version of a hysterectomy, this is my story. I do remember once we decided, we being my doctor and my husband, my family, once we decided that that was going to be the best route for myself, there was a lot of thoughts that I had. So I want to try and put as much into this video as possible on how we got there. And then maybe I'll come back and talk about my healing after I've gone through more healing. Like I said, this is just 1 week. So what do I know about healing? I'm just taking it day by day, minute by minute, sometimes hour by hour. Girl, it's a thing. So I think my best route to this conversation is to really talk about what got me to the decision to have a hysterectomy. So let's start there. Anyone that knows me knows that I am, the older I get, the more thoughtful I am on what direction I want my life to go in. I have always been a very busy person, just kind of looking back. So for me to have entered the realm of needing a surgery that was going to basically stop me in my tracks, there was a lot of thought that went into it. I will say, when I was pregnant with my daughter is when I first realized or was told that I had fibroids, and it wasn't anything that I gave much thought to. We had a full pregnancy. The only thing that brought notice to me having fibroids, which is, let's get to it, that's really what caused the surgery, with me having fibroids, is I remember feeling my daughter's head move across my stomach. And the craziest thing is, I could not only feel it, but you could see it. And I remember talking to my doctor about, yeah, we've been seeing her. I could feel her head moving across my stomach. And my doctor was like, that is not your daughter's head. Those are fibroids. So, you know, I remember it being a conversation about, you know, what I would feel. It wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't any more uncomfortable than I thought the regular pregnancy was. I mean, some days were better than others, but that was my first indication that I had fibroids. Again, we had my daughter. We delivered her regularly. I didn't have to have a cesarean. We were blessed. We had a healthy baby girl. A few years later, we went through a similar situation. We ended up delivering a healthy baby boy. That was the initial things of me hearing about fibroids. Fibroids never really got into the way of me, one, carrying to term. At least I didn't know if it did. I didn't really feel any additional pain from them. I went back on birth control both times, and that was pretty much the gist of it. Fast forward now, Chloe is almost 20. My son Chandler almost 17. And you know, as the body does, it continues to grow, it continues to slow down. We start to hear different things that happen when the body, you know, you hit about 40 years old. Normal situations, people talk about, oh, you know, you might hit menopause. Oh, you're probably going to start the weight gain. Well, my body, in the year of COVID, I really put on an astronomical amount of weight. Astronomical. I also started to have crazy amounts of hot flashes, that of which I attributed to weight gain, being over 40, being vastly overweight. Never really contributed that to fibroids. I had seen a doctor about how much weight and how round my lower belly had gotten. Originally still contributing that to the massive amount of weight that I gained during. And I saw a doctor because I had started doing research on fibroids. Well, I wanted to make sure because I had heard that I had them years before, and I started to contribute a little bit of my immobility to maybe this is because of fibroids. Although I had put on a lot of weight, I didn't know if I should really lay my issue on the fibroids or if I really need to lay the issues on the weight gain. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to see a doctor. This is when a lot of the new information start coming out about where they kind of go in, they kind of nick the body, they go in with the scope, and they could literally remove the blood flow to the fibroids. I'm going to leave the name right here. I can't think of the name right now. But I started hearing about it. There was a new vascular center that was really doing a lot of advertisement. And I was like, you know, that might be something I need to go and look into. Because I know that I have fibroids. My stomach is bowing out unlike it ever has before. And I need to really rule out that these fibroids aren't growing. That literally is what came to my mind. There was a famous makeup artist, Kim Lee, that talked about it. They ran some specials on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. There were some of the one of the main characters had this, and it really started to sound like stuff that I was going through as well, because I was only holding weight mainly in my stomach. So I was like, oh my God, what is going on? So I had a conversation with one of the doctors there, and he was adamant that I needed to go and have a vaginal sonogram, and I also needed to have a MRI. So they wanted to do a full workup. And you know what? I just jumped fast forward to post. There was another time that I actually had a similar workup when we lived in North Carolina, because we've now been in Georgia for 6 years, well, going on 7 years. I had a similar workup in North Carolina. I can't remember what triggered it, but my doctor started noticing that my fibroids were starting to grow. And that happened when we were in North Carolina, but the whole conversation was, you know, they're not giving you any problems, leave them alone. You know, they might just be there forever. And it was fine. We had 2 kids. I didn't really have any major issues from them. I wasn't having issues, although that I could feel them, but not that they were giving me excruciating pain, as you will hear certain people talk about. They give them excruciating pain. So I was one of that mindset. They ain't bothering me. I'm not going to bother them. I just filed it in my medical history, honey. It wasn't anything that I really thought about too much after that. Again, until post. I actually end up having my medical records from North Carolina. I had those that I'm definitely going to advise anyone that's watching this video. If you have medical records, you want to make sure that you get them in hand form, because at some point your doctor might want to compare. Doctors are closing, hospitals are collapsing into another hospital. Just having your medical records at your fingertips, it is necessary, especially when you start to get of age. I mean, you have to take control of your medical history. So that's just a little PSA. Anyway, so I have this whole workup. The doctor ended up calling because he wanted me to see him back as quickly as possible, because they wanted to get me on the schedule if there was something that they needed to do, surgery that is. And When he ended up getting my workup back, I was there in the office, and he called the place that I had my full workup, and they started counting how many fibroids I had. They got into the teens of how many I had, and he was adamant, and it was a he really wanted to get them removed. He was like, I don't like that, how many you've had. That's too many for you to, you know, to have. And okay, so now I am thinking, you know, I think I want to really try to get this weight off before I have to have surgery. So I told him, I said, well, doc, I'm going to start a 6-week workout plan. And if I don't get my full mobility back, because I was starting to have issues pulling my legs up, and, you know, it was just feeling very heavy in my lower stomach. My cycles were starting to get really out of control. Like it was a thing. It was starting to become an issue. But again, me being a very controlling person, I wasn't going to allow something that I might be able to take control of and get a better result to be the reason that I was willing to have a surgery. Like it was going to really have to trigger another part of my brain to go and be that final with something, to really go up under the knife, which is something I've never experienced before. So I didn't want to allow that to be my only option. I really wanted to control the outcome myself and make sure that if I was going to have to go up under the knife, that was absolutely the only way that I was going to be able to get my mobility back. So we started the workout program. I started to get amazing results, and here we are 2 years to me starting the workout plan. I've lost well over 20 pounds. I've lost well over 25% body fat, and I'm feeling fantastic. I mean, I'm showing outfits on TikTok. Like I feel like myself. I'm getting my body back, with the exception of there's a massive football that sits below my belly button at all times. I am as thin as I've been in, oh my God, several years. And I feel rocks. This is what my lower abdomen feels like. You can touch it, or post-surgery, you could touch it. And I felt like I had rocks. My cycle was absolutely crazy. I almost was at the point that I really shouldn't leave the house. Or at least on day one. I really shouldn't leave the house, because it was just going to be just flooding. And we're not trying to be too graphic. You get it. Flooding. I was also very anemic, exhausted. Day one. I'm talking about exhausted. But I never let it stop me from going to the gym, which was crazy, because that was my mental relief. Of course, I am doing everything possible in me not to have surgery. Like when I tell you, I was absolutely content and intentional on not having surgery. But the thing that brought us to this point is, in the latter part of January, I heard about a beautiful YouTuber that I had followed through my YouTube career, Miss Jessica Padaway, rest in peace. Jessica, before her death, told a similar story that she had been dealing with fibroids. She had birthed 2 children, and long story short, they went in to remove what they thought was fibroids and found out that she had cancer. The day that I heard that story, it stopped me in my tracks. And it made me realize that I was absolutely probably setting myself up for a worse result from my doctor. And because we as women, we hear about fibroids, that it's kind of mainstream conversation, but nobody tells you how they dealt with them. Nobody says anything about them having surgeries. I mean, I come from a girl family. There's nobody that's telling me, oh yes, you know, your auntie had a surgery. Oh yeah, your cousin had a surgery. Nobody's saying it. No, nobody's talking about it. We're just moving past it, because that's what we do. We don't make excuses for us not being who we are. We just move past it. But because Jessica, even in her darkest hour, found the strength to tell the story, I felt that I would be remiss not to tell what my story is. It's crazy because I had seen my gynecologist about 2 years, again around the same time that I was going to be talking to the vascular center about if I would be a good candidate for this surgery that they were going to handle. And my gynecologist was actually about to retire. I had talked about, you know, the weight gain and maybe if that was an issue, and she mentioned to me that, you know, I just needed to probably move my body more. She didn't go too much into it, but she told me that she was going to be retiring. So I knew by the time that I was trying to go back and get some type of conversation around possibly going in and making sure that this is only fibroids and like being real intentional about it, she wasn't going to be the person that I could talk to about it. And this is the craziest thing. I said then, I want to try to find me a African American female gynecologist. This is who I need to talk to about this, because honestly, through my entire phase of having to see an OB or a gynecologist, I've never had an African American be my care provider, never. But I felt compelled to have that because culturally, maybe, shall we say, African Americans don't really talk about surgeries and different types of methods or remedies. We don't talk about it as much, which is when I got ready to search having hysterectomy. I really didn't find a lot of doctors that talked about it online. I really didn't see too many people that talked about having fibroids and this being their end result. So I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and let me look for that. This is where it gets really crazy. This is how I know that God was all in the details. I just told you guys that my gynecologist was retiring. I looked up African American female gynecologist, doing like a Google search near me. The doctor that came up first was Dr. Donna Adams Pickett. I couldn't get anyone on the phone to schedule an appointment. So a few days later, I was like, you know what? I need to go to my gynecologist and see if my doctor is still there or if there is a doctor that has taken over my previous doctor's caseload. I went by her office and lo and behold, Dr. Donna Adams Pickett had taken over the building that my original gynecologist was in. Now, if y'all can't tell me God was not in the details of that, honey, because I'm telling you, I have been hearing about fibroids in my body for almost 20 years. And I have never been as compelled as I was when I heard Jessica's story that I needed to start taking control of my body, because I could literally have a ticking time bomb inside of me and just be like, well, it ain't bothering me, so I'm not going to bother them. No, I'm a mother of two. I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a mom, I'm a business owner. I have to be a little bit more responsible with how I'm actually wrapping my mind around the resolve of the situation. That's what led us to this point. I spoke to Dr. Donna Adams Pickett. She had me lay down. At this point, I'm almost 2 years post-workout routine, about a year and a half. And she started feeling my abdomen, and right away, she was like, that is not tissue. Those are fibroids. And she said, I can feel them. And you're just laying down. So, of course, she ordered a full workup. Long story short, here we are. Fibroids. She not only found massive amounts of fibroids, she showed me a graph of what my uterus should have measured, about this big. My uterus was measuring this big. She also found a massive cyst on my left ovary, of which I had never heard about, that she was adamant, this needs to come out. She kept asking me, is it causing any problems? I told her about the exhaustion. I told her about the insane amount of bleeding that I had during my cycle. My cycle had started to be very, very erratic too. I didn't mention that. Had hot flashes. I was already experiencing that, but I attributed a lot of that to horrible eating habits that I was maybe throwing myself into premenopause. And I honestly, when I tell you, hearing myself say what I was thinking sounds absolutely insane, but this is how intentional I was on not having to have surgery. I was blaming everything on something else. I never really was trying to attribute it to the fibroids. And oh my God, the cyst. Not only was my uterus completely irregular, but the cyst was bigger than the uterus. So if the uterus was measuring this, the cyst was measuring this. Now, if your ovaries are about this big and the cyst is hanging off it is this big, hello? Where in the heck is it? They were both protruding out in the lower part of my abdomen. So it started to click. There's no place for it to go, so now it's pushing outwards. So I was like, okay, doc, how are we going to proceed? And when I tell you that this doctor, her delivery was the delivery that I needed. Her medical expertise was put in terms of, if this is not creating major issues for you now, it's only a matter of time before it is. So now, okay, I am getting ready to try to take care of something that is in the near future going to start creating problems. I've cultivated this whole false sense of security around new eating habits, new workout habits, a newer stress-free lifestyle, and all that at any point in time could come crashing down because I did not take this situation serious. And really, it is kind of like planning anything else. If you're planning to have surgery, plan it around when you can actually have the most time for recovery. And I know me, I'm ramping up into holiday, and my mind is, I only have a small window of opportunity for us to have this surgery and me to recover and do what I need to do and give this very important part of my life the attention that it needs. I'm going to want to have my mind on my business and my family and the holidays and birthdays and all the things that I love. I only have this window of opportunity to control this situation, if there's me any controlling it. Now, again, this sounds like I'm trying to control the situation. I understand that I'm not, but because she's presented me with what is a good timeline for us to go ahead and get this out. I knew that my business had Essence Festival, which is something we had been gearing up for for a whole year. I knew that we had that coming up in July. I knew that my husband and our 25th wedding anniversary was also coming up in July. I knew the kids were going back to school in the middle of August, so I was trying to shoot about the beginning of August. So that's the timeline that I left her with. And yeah, we stuck with that. So here we are, 1 week post-op. I'm so absolutely grateful that I didn't take the message from God in vain. I'm so grateful that I was listening to information about Jessica when I did, because we're literally just shy of 5 months of me hearing this conversation that I've actually had the removal of my fibroids and this massive cyst. If you have something that's going on with your body, you have to continue to be an advocate for yourself, to find someone that can actually go along the journey with you, that is going to give you comfort in their expertise. My doctor never tried to make it seem like she was better than God. She always mentioned that she was on assignment by him. She always mentioned that she was his assistant. She prayed with me in the doctor's office. She prayed with me in the pre-op room. And I'm grateful that she took in the profession that she did, and she's willing to share her brilliance, as far as I'm concerned, with us. So that was where I've been. That's how we got here. I'm going to post this video probably in a series. As of now, I think I'm going to come back on how I've been this 1 week post-op. If you guys have any questions, please make sure that you ask them down below, because this is something very, very, I think, important, that we as women take control of our bodies, that we're mindful on our health, we're mindful on being advocates for having a medical professional that is not just in the patient money business, that they are in the business of treating us like a family friend. That's what I got from this whole situation. So if there are any questions that you guys have, make sure that you comment down below, and you know what, we'll see you next time. Bye.